Hello, boils and ghouls. First, I just want to thank everyone for all of the well wishes and checking in on me and my family during the LA fires, and to any of our listeners that have been affected with either them, their friends, or their family. I hope you're all safe and you're able to access resources that are needed. It's been amazing seeing everyone come together. We all try to volunteer, and places are just being swamped with people going out there to support one another, and it's really amazing to see. On lighter news, we've been celebrating. We're wrapping up our celebration of Demon Knight's 30th anniversary. We had the interview that we put out with the screenwriters, the interview with William Sadler, and we also had the tribute video with the screenwriters, some of the stars, the producer, and the director, Ernest Dickerson. That's only on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check that out. And now we're presenting the review that we did of Demon Knight very early in the show. I think it's episode 7. So it might not be the same quality, at least as far as sound and stuff goes. And unfortunately, we don't have the video of it, but I put together a nice little slideshow of Demon Knight behind the scenes and other scenes and whatnot for you to enjoy. So again, thank you everyone for checking in. I hope everyone is safe, and hopefully this gives you at least a little reprieve from all the craziness happening right now. Thank you, and we'll be back to our regular programming. But for now, enjoy our review of Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight.
Hello, kiddies. Welcome to Tales from the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 7 of Tales from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I'll be your host tonight. And I am joined by Jody.
Hello.
And Mondo.
Hello.
And tonight, we'll be doing our first movie cover review of Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knights. And to join us with this special task, we have a very special friend from the Bloody Good Horror Slack community. Please welcome Natalie.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And I know that you're a huge Demon Knight fan, and as soon as we announced we're doing this, that you pretty much volunteered yourself. So I really appreciate your enthusiasm. So why don't you go and tell us about yourself and your history with Tales from the Crypt?
Sure. So I am a big horror fan, and about 40 years old. I live in LA. And I love this movie. It holds a lot of nostalgic value for me because it was really the movie that got me into horror movies. I was a very anxious child with an overactive imagination. And I saw a few scenes from Cronenberg's remake of The Fly. I saw a few scenes from Fire in the Sky, which isn't even a horror movie. But both of those gave me nightmares for weeks. So I steered clear of horror movies or horror TV or much of horror anything for a very, very long time. I started kind of getting my gateway into horror was like reading Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine books for a few years as a tween. And I tolerated those okay, but I was still kind of scared of movies. And then a friend of mine, when this movie came out shortly thereafter, decided it was a great idea to peer pressure me into going to see this movie. And I was reluctant, but I thought, well, maybe enough time has passed that I can handle a horror movie. And the answer was yes. And not only did I handle it, but I really liked it. And here we are today.
Man, so this movie here was kind of your gateway then. I love it.
It totally was. And it came out when I was 14, and I didn't realize until I was doing a little bit of research for this show that it actually came out on my 14th birthday.
That's right.
Friday, January 13th, 1995. Fun thing about having your birthday on the 13th is that it's occasionally on Friday.
Nice.
So I thought that was a really nice little factoid there.
That's super cool. And also, if I can point out that Fire in the Sky is one of the most terrifying movies ever.
Yes.
I
Natalie,
stand
when you
by
were
that.
talking, I'm sorry. I had this like involuntary noise come out of me when you said "Fire in the Sky," like
I saw your face.
because
it's not good.
no, that scene with the dude on the table with the stuff
Ugh.
suctioned onto him,
Yeah.
like I had like a flashback there. Like I didn't hear anything else you said. I was just thinking of that scene the rest of the time.
Yeah, it was that scene from that movie, and then in The Fly, it was where he throws up on the donuts, and then his ear comes off. Or it might happen in the other order. I'm not sure, but that was enough for me.
It's Cronenberg, so something's fallen off somebody's body in that
Yes.
movie. I can tell you guys a quick story that'll make me sound like a lunatic. So before I say this story, I have to tell you three things. One is the Earth is round. Two, vaccinations are real. And three, the Earth is not hollow. But when I was a young kid, probably about, I don't know, Fire in the Sky came out around 93, I think. So I had to have been 11 or 12. We have family that lived in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And we drove through the White Mountains at one point because my parents always kind of wanted at some point to retire there. So we drove through the White Mountains and we're driving. I swear this happened. We're driving and we see a blue light in the distance and it came towards our car, circled around the car, and then went away.
Cool.
To this day, I can't explain it. And we were in the White Mountains. And I think I watched Fire in the Sky like a week after that and pretty much slept with the lights on for about a month.
So one other little piece of personal backstory about this movie that I also didn't realize until I was doing a little bit of research is that it's a Universal film, which I think is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, my parents met when they both worked at Universal Studios in their 20s.
Wow.
My dad was a tram driver and my mom was a tour guide. And then I went on to work at Universal Studios when I was in college. I worked at the food carts. I didn't eat a churro for about 20 years after that. There's nothing wrong with churros, by the way. I just got real sick.
Yeah, understandably.
And then my husband actually worked there briefly between jobs, kind of as like a summer gig. I gotta say, like 7 or 8 years ago. So deep family history with Universal Studios. And when we worked there, on our name tag, it said our name, obviously, but it also had to say our favorite Universal movie. And so everybody at the time, when I got hired like with a huge group of people that were getting hired for the summer, everybody was picking Fast and Furious because it was just, the movie was out and maybe it was the second one. I don't remember. But I was like, I don't want to pick Fast and Furious. Like everybody's picking Fast and Furious. So I picked The Birds because I couldn't think of a better one. But I wish now that I had realized that Demon Knight was a Universal movie because I totally would have picked Demon Knight.
So I think, awesome. Well, I think at this point now we can say that the Crypt Keeper is a Universal monster.
Oh, yes. I
nice.
like that.
Well, I was wondering about this because I know that HBO is owned by Warner's. So I'm curious why Universal distributed this or is the logo and not Warner Brothers. But something I'm sure is much more like in the insider baseball than we can figure out. So I did some Googling on it. And they were never owned by Universal. I thought maybe they used to be, but no, they've always been Warner Brothers subsidiary. So,
sounds like something you should have researched before the episode.
I tried, actually. I said I tried. I couldn't find anything.
Shit with all this spreadsheet stuff he does, Mondo.
I, as the most unprepared person for every episode, I'm going to be the one that talks shit about someone not being prepared.
Okay, before we dive in to the main events, a couple announcements. So if you have not listened yet, please check out our interview with the voice of the Crypt Keeper himself, John Kassir, that was released last Wednesday. And then this week, we are releasing our interview with the star of Demon Knight, William Sadler, on Tuesday. As if that wasn't enough, we're releasing an interview that we did with 2 of the writers of Demon Knight on Thursday. So make sure you check our socials and our feeds for all those things. Now, let's talk about Demon Knights. Demon Knight was released on Friday the 13th, 1995. Jody, hit us with a plot synopsis.
All right, so I'm not going to go into everything, and I'm going to go ahead and put out a spoiler alert here for a movie that came out 26 years ago, just in case you haven't seen it yet. But let's get started here. So it starts with a man, we don't know his name at the time, being chased by another man, we don't know his name. That's William Sadler being chased by Billy Zane. And they have this massive car crash and explosion that should have killed everybody, but they don't. They both walk away from it. And Sadler, whose name we still don't know, runs off and he's trying to hide. He tries to steal a car. It doesn't work. And he meets a man named Uncle Willie, played by Dick Miller. And he leads Breaker. Well, that's his name. Sorry. He leads Breaker to a boarding house where he meets up with all these interesting characters there. So in the boarding house, you have Irene, who's like the no nonsense owner, played by CCH Pounder. Jerry Lynn, played by Jada Pinkett Smith, who is a former thief who's there working at this place on a work release program. You got Cordelia, played by Brenda Bach, who is a prostitute. You got Wally, played by Charles Flesher, who is a down on his luck mailman, loser, former mailman who is in love with Cordelia. And then you've got Roach, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who is Cordelia's a-hole boyfriend who shows up.
A-hole is putting it nicely.
Yeah. Oh, but real quick, I'm digressing from my own plot synopsis here. So Thomas Hayden Church, we'll get into all the talk about talent, but I just want to go ahead and mention this while I'm thinking about it. Thomas Hayden Church was on a show in the early 90s called Wings, where he played the mechanic. I've discovered that the cast of Wings, if they're in a horror movie, I'm probably going to love it. Okay? Crystal Bernard, Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Too, right?
Oh, okay.
Tony Shalhoub, 13 Ghost.
Oh, yes.
And this is more controversial. Steven Weber was in the Shining TV version, which I actually like quite a bit. It's not a great movie, but it's the closest to the book. Okay, so I do like it for that purpose.
Other than that child actor, it's really good.
Yeah. He was also in The Perfection just recently, which is a movie that's kind of controversial, but I really like The Perfection. Okay, so anybody from Wings, if they're in a horror movie, I'm probably going to like it.
That's a show about a bar that serves chicken wings, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, sure.
All right, cool. I just want to make sure.
Okay, so back to what we were actually talking about. Okay, so he's hiding there with all this cast of kind of unique characters, and they have all these dynamics going on. And meanwhile, Billy Zane has teamed up with the cops to find this guy. And he says he's stolen something from him. The cops are confused about how they managed to get out of this huge fiery explosion and survive. But anyway, Irene at the boarding house alerts the cops, and they show up there. And there's a little back and forth. They try to arrest the guy. They find out his name is Breaker. And as they're getting ready to take him in, the cops also try to arrest the other guy, played by Billy Zane. And that's when Billy Zane reveals his true nature and punches through the head of one of the cops, which is just a fantastic scene.
He goes through it, it's like caught.
It's caught on there. Yeah, it's not just the punching through, it's the getting stuck and then throwing the head across the room. And up until that point, we haven't really known who the good guy or the bad guy is, but that scene pretty clearly states Billy Zane's the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, those cops were dicks, though, so we could have gone either way.
Well, one of them then is now part of this group, Deputy Bob. He sticks around for the rest of it. So anyway, punches through. We find out he's a bad guy. Billy Zane goes outside. His character's name is the Collector. Did they ever actually say the Collector at any point?
I think at one point they did.
Okay, I don't know if I need to just keep referring him to Billy Zane as Billy Zane or the Collector.
Either one. I think at one point he says, "I am a collector."
Okay.
This is it's the Collector. It says, "I am a collector."
Yeah. Truly, I can't divorce this character from Billy Zane, so I'm going to refer to him back and forth as Billy Zane or the Collector. I assume this is what Billy Zane's like in real life, as far as in my head. Um, and so he gets kicked out, and they use some blood from this magic key to seal off the doors so he can't get in. So he cuts himself and makes all these little baby pumpkin head looking demons pop up. And so that the good guys are all sealed up inside this building. Billy Zane and all his little demons are outside the building. And from there on, it's a fight for survival, where Billy Zane is trying to seduce and win people over and possess them and make them kill other people. And then Breaker is educating everyone about what the stakes are, which are much higher than just a scary guy outside the door. So that's where I'm going right now. We'll talk about the rest as we go. But that's kind of your setup here. The rest of the movie is mostly trapped in this boarding house, trying to survive as Billy Zane tries to infiltrate.
Thank you, Jody. Look, well, let me just go back 1 second. So again,
fill in everything I missed. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot, but you left out one of the best parts. So again, this came out in 1995, so it's the height of Tales from the Crypt mania. The Crypt Keeper is like, everywhere, merchandising. And then you get a movie for Tales from the Crypt. And I can only imagine like if you were a big Tales from the Crypt fan, going to a theater, sitting down and on like this like huge 50-foot screen, seeing the opening from the Tales from the Crypt show in like this huge format.
Yeah, they play the whole theme song and everything.
The entire opening of the show. And then actually goes right into, this is the part you left out, they do like a parody of a Tales from the Crypt episode for like a minute, where where a wife kills her husband and calls her lover and says, "I did it. Come here while I get cleaned up." And then the dead lover comes back, and it's almost like, so they say it's almost like they're setting you up as if you're watching a TV show from Tales from the Crypt, and it's like kind of playing with you a little bit. And then all of a sudden, cut. When this like ghoul is coming out of this tub and is about to attack this woman in the bathtub, and it turns out the Crypt Keeper is now the director of Tales from the Crypt. And then you're seeing like kind of the behind the scenes.
Well, and speaking of the ghoul guy in the first scene, did anyone recognize him?
Oh, John Larroquette.
That's John Larroquette, absolutely.
Yeah,
From Night Court and many other things.
Yeah.
if he's in the opening of your movie, it's going to be good.
That's right. I wholeheartedly agree. And don't forget, that segment contains both a bunch of boobs and a bunch of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I really think that's giving the audience what they want from Tales from the Crypt. And so they're like, just straight from the beginning, we're going to give you that Tales from the Crypt stuff that you like.
But
and all the horrible puns from the Crypt Keeper.
The best. But it's kind of cool, though, when you think about it. That intro is almost a throwback to season 1, episode 2, where that episode begins with the woman killing her husband and then calling her lover.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if that was intentional, but I like it.
It's almost like, as an audience, you're going, again, pre-internet and everything. You don't really know too much about what the plot of the movie. So you're going to the movie, you're sitting down, you're getting the exact same intro you are from the TV show. You're getting the same setup as the TV show. And then it kind of pulls back and says, no, this is actually going to be something much bigger than what you normally see on TV. Yeah. And the image of the Crypt Keeper walking, like as the court director, it just makes me giggle every time I see it.
I don't know if
it's like Kermit walking. It feels weird.
Like green screen or rotoscope
or
something. It was very strange.
There was an actor wearing like a green screen,
mask,
and then they just CGI the Crypt Keeper head on someone else's body.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would like to give this movie. I want to give it a shout out, and I also would like to make a tiny request. So I want to give this movie a shout out for being super diverse, given that it was a horror movie from 1995, right? So it was directed by Ernest Dickerson, a Black man who also did Bones and then like a bunch of TV, right?
He was the cinematographer on Do the Right Thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And he was also in Horror Noir. He was one of the people they interviewed in Horror Noir, who was extremely interesting. Then we've got Jada Pinkett Smith, who's the final girl. Essentially, we've got CCH Pounder, who's always great no matter what. Then you've got Gary Marshall, who plays the deputy. He's an Indigenous American. And then also briefly in the Uncle Willie seduction scene is Tracy Bingham, who was Playboy Playmate and was on The Surreal Life. And also apparently shares my birthday, January 13th, which I found out when I was looking at this.
That's rad.
Nice.
Well, you know what's kind of crazy about it is I never really thought much about the diversity in it because I grew up in a melting pot here in Nevada, but to think like even in 1995 that was still kind of a brave thing to do. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I have a theory
Absolutely.
that Tales from the Crypt must have done, the producers or someone must have done a lot of polling to see like what the demographics were for Tales
Oh,
from the
good
Crypt at
point.
the time, because I feel like a lot of their marketing and stuff might be very targeted to people of color.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the show is white people getting their comeuppance. So I think
That's a good
I feel like
point.
they're
I
almost
hadn't
trying to
thought
tap
about that.
into that in some way. Because I was looking at this, I was doing some googling, and we're kind of going to the end, but we'll get back. That turns out Geraldine is the only person that really survives, and she's the final girl. And I can't think of any movie before this that ever had an African American or even a person of color as a final girl. And even really since, there haven't been like that many true horror movies.
Yeah. I would have to like purposefully search, because I know they're out there, but like it's not like thinking of a white final girl where you're just
It's
like
also-
you immediately have a million options.
I mean, if anything, it's like the white final girl who has a black friend who just happens to survive.
right,
Right.
exactly.
No, you're right.
At the very end.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like in 2021, watching this again, I pegged right away that Jada Pinkett Smith is going to survive. That's only because I know what she's done since then. She was a, you know what I mean? Like she was a star. So my mentality was, but up until this point, she wasn't really a big star yet.
No.
I don't
She
think.
was in the making, and she's just so badass.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, she is absolutely.
Yeah, I think before this, she'd only done. And I'm thinking off memory here. Maybe you have it in the. No, but she had done Jason's Lyric. Jason's Lyric, was that what it was called?
No.
And then
Menace to Society.
and she had done Menace to Society, and she
Right.
had done the movie with Keenan Ivory Rain, A Low Down Dirty Shame.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But she wasn't like a superstar yet. So it's kind of cool because they saw. I mean, she's a great actress and did fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So one small request, and I know that this is kind of like a social justice warrior sort of thing, and I apply that term to myself affectionately. That I work with. I'm a therapist, psychologist, and I've worked with a lot of sex workers actually over the years. There's a lot of people, a lot of therapists automatically pathologize sex work in their clients, and luckily there's a growing amount of people who just see it as a job, like I do. And so if we're going to talk about Cordelia, can we call her a sex worker instead of a prostitute? Because prostitute is a little bit of an old school kind of stigmatizing term. And I know that might be a little cringy, but
No, that's not cringy at all. Like, as we evolve as society, these are things that we need to do to become better. So no, thank you.
Yeah, and also they actually kind of go into like her character pretty deeply with the whole
so
possession.
sad.
I know, it's
She's
so sad. But we'll get there in a second. So one other thing before we get even further, because there's so many layers of things, because we're like super nerd fans of this movie.
Mhm.
The soundtrack is amazing because the whole opening scene filters He-Man Nice Shot, which is an
Wait,
amazing.
guys, I have something funny to tell you about Hey Man, Nice Shot, though.
Yeah.
So I tend to watch my movies with closed captioning, and so I was watching it on Amazon with closed captioning, and of course, as soon as the song starts, like anybody who was a teenager in the '90s, you're like, "Oh, it's Hey Man, Nice Shot," right? Okay, guys, according to Amazon closed captioning, it's "Hey Baby, That's Good."
What? Are you kidding me? That's insane.
Not "Hey Man, Nice Shot." It's "Hey Baby, That's Good." We've been getting it wrong all this time.
Maybe that's like the censored version of. I don't know. That's that just stabs me in the heart. I had the CD back in the day, and it was badass. It had Pantera and Megadeth and Gravediggers and
First of all, it's Grave Diggers, but it's cool.
yes.
And can we stop talking about the soundtrack because you're going to totally ruin my music segment later.
Okay, sorry. But that opening is just so well done. Because it fades out, and then there's the car crash,
Yeah.
and it fades back in.
Yeah.
A funny story about Filter is that for years, I say this I'm very ashamed of this. For years, I swore, and I would have bet any amount of money that the front man of Filter, Richard Patrick, played the T-1000 in Terminator 2.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, huh, okay.
This is pre-internet days. I remember making a bet with a friend of mine back in 2004, and I had to find a payphone, to call my wife to have her look it up on the internet at home because our phones didn't get the internet to see if I was right or wrong. And I lost that bet.
But you were really close because he's Robert Patrick's brother.
Yeah, I was very, but I was.
You were
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that
I was.
close. Yeah.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. But
So-
I was completely convinced that he was a T1000 because I just heard something wrong.
I
one
mean,
time.
they bear a strong resemblance to each other. They are brothers that look a lot alike.
Remember
No.
back in the pre-internet days when you just didn't know things and you couldn't verify stuff, so you just said stuff.
Oh,
And
boy,
now
it
when
was
we have the
awful.
internet and we just still don't know anything,
Well, now we have the internet.
and people,
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into this right now.
Okay, so that actually
Now
is
we
a
just know the wrong things. Let's move on.
Yeah.
All right. So this actually leads. That's a great segue because while I was watching this, I start picking out kind of tropes in other movies that this movie's emulating in certain ways, especially James Cameron movies, because the way that the movie is set up is you have Billy Zane is set up as he's got a cowboy hat, he's kind of got like a button shirt, he's very official, well spoken. Breaker is kind of fidgety. He's wearing a leather jacket. He looks a little schlubby. He looks a little worn down. So you kind of set up to think that Billy Zane's character is the quote good guy. It looks like a lawman, and
Yeah.
Baker is kind of the rebel, the fugitive.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, he tries to steal a car. He's being
which
chased.
is very much again like Terminator 2, where you think Arnold
Right, yeah.
is the bad Terminator, and this other Terminator that is dressed up like a police officer is the good guy. And then there's the whole twist.
Well,
So I
they
kind
even,
of
they even have Billy Zane with the light colored jacket on with the cowboy hat,
Mhm.
and they have William Sadler with the black leather jacket with the dark and the light contrast too, which
Yeah.
is kind of neat.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool how they set that up because again, if you don't know much about the movie, you might have barely seen the trailer, you don't know who.
No, they
Who's
do
who?
a great job of playing with that in the beginning.
Mhm.
Like it isn't until that very pivotal scene where it becomes abundantly clear who the bad guy is. And what a great scene for that. My God. Like I remember because this was my first horror movie in, forever that I'd ever seen in a theater, because the ones that I had nightmares about, I was just watching. I happened to walk by as HBO was on, right? That's the only way that I saw those, right? So the whole time I was like super tense. I was like waiting, something's gonna happen, and then that happened, and it was like, holy shit.
Again, it's not just a punch; it's like violent. Like, and then CCH Pounder's character does like a spit take.
Yeah.
I love that shot. We're just like spitting out whatever. I think she's got a cigarette and maybe some drink or something, and just goes everywhere on towards the camera.
Oh, she's
And
so
everyone
Yeah,
just-
I mean-
it's almost like the alien birth scene in like Alien.
Yeah.
I mean, the reactions are great, and then the whole thing where he can't get the head off his hand, like
Yeah.
you
And then
know.
let's not forget Roach. Because right before that, they're going through,
Roach, please.
they're going through each room, and Cordelia is with Roach, and she's got a car battery. It looks like hooked up to his nipples.
If only she had just turned the voltage up all the way,
Yeah.
we would have saved a lot of trouble.
well, and just for
But then
saying,
you wouldn't get the great line, "My nipples are smoking."
Yes. Awesome
and,
line.
and as everybody knows, you never do it to both nipples because your heart's in between those, and that can cause you to die.
Oh,
I'll
Is
keep
that your
in
dad
mind.
advice today?
yeah.
That's my dad advice. Like you're playing with electricity.
Millennial dad advice.
I've already made a Natalie facepalm. So
Yeah.
We're off
Yeah,
to a good
so
start.
the collector's out there shooting out blood from his hand, and then these like little puppets.
Like blacklight blood, which just looks amazing.
Oh, it looks
Yeah.
so
It's okay. This isn't trivia time, but that was actually glow sticks.
yeah.
Like they took a bunch of glow sticks and broke them and poured all the glow stick goo out. And that's what all that
Nice.
shiny blood is.
man,
That always cracks me up when you hear about that in the movies. Like, can't they just buy that stuff in bulk? Do they really need to go through and waste all these
Yeah,
glow
they
sticks?
actually had to take glow sticks and cut them apart and drain them like one at a time.
Well, no, I mean, I bet you can't buy that in bulk because it has to be activated.
Oh,
So you can't activate a ton of it at once, right? I mean, that would just waste it all.
if there's
guess so.
anything, if
That's
there's
the
anything
point.
amazing about practical effects, it's the ingenuity that these guys had.
Mhm.
Like these guys and gals had. Like I just love.
Yeah.
I love that. Like I imagine they're trying to figure this out, and they're both like, "I know, glow sticks," and they ran to some party store and bought every
Mhm.
glow stick, and the clerk's like,
Uh-huh.
What's wrong with these fucking people? And little do they know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the puppets are like obviously like there's a fake ground and someone's like hand is coming through a little puppet thing. These like little demons are like coming through the ground, they're like all oozy and gooey, and I'm sure it's like KY jelly or
They're little baby demons at
little
first.
baby. They're so cute.
They look like Pumpkinhead. They look like Pumpkinhead's
They
children
do. They totally look like
before all their hair grows in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And like,
But even though you can look at it and know kind of how it's done, like you can be like, okay, the ground's fake and puppet. It's a really good looking effect.
yeah,
Like this is the first time in the movie, other than the head punch, that you get some of this really cool effect work. And those things look awesome. And then rising up out of the ground with the glowy stuff, it's so cool looking.
mm-hmm. And then Billy Zane just goes from like maybe a 5 or a 4, just kind of laid back lawman type, to like saying humans, you're not worth the skin you're printed on.
Yeah.
Oh, you're missing the best line when he first goes out. Fucking ho dunk, po dunk, well then there, motherfuckers. Like I love that. He's doing his whole
That's the clip of the
thing.
night because I wanted to say that line. But I'm looking
Tell that like he's been putting on this act, right?
Yeah.
He's been trying to be Mr. Suave and and he loses it. He's like, enough with you fuckers.
Yeah.
It reminds
Yeah.
you of when you have to work all day with clients, have to act like you're somebody else, and then you get
Yeah.
in your car and blast a black metal CD on the way home.
Well, and let's not forget. So up until this point, Roach was just kind of like an annoying guy, like who was getting his nipples batteried by Cordelia. But once the demon thing starts, that's when his true horribleness starts to come out, right? Because he's immediately like, Breaker's trying to seal the whole place up with the blood from the key.
Yeah, why don't you
right?
explain that?
We'll find out more about later. But
Yeah.
it's pretty clear, like, this guy knows what he's doing, right? Like, he knows what he's doing, and what he's doing works, right? He puts the blood on the thing. The demons can't come in, right? They try, and it gets repelled. But Roach is like, no. I know better. I gotta go. Cordelia, come with me, right? So he brings Cordelia outside. One of the demons rushes up to him. He throws Cordelia at the demon
Yeah.
and
So-
runs
so-
back inside.
So are you saying that cocky, selfish dummies don't like to listen to experts?
I was going to make that comparison a little later in the show because it is in my notes, but yes.
Roach definitely wouldn't wear a fucking mask.
Yeah.
But,
Or would he get vaccinated?
So like
At the
he's just
beginning,
so
though,
visible.
well, at the beginning, I thought he was going to be, because I'll be honest, I haven't watched this probably in 6-7 years, and I didn't remember much about it, but I thought when I first saw it, I'm like, he's going to be the redemption story. He's going to be the bad guy who's a piece of shit, but then at the end lays down his life for the good. Nope.
Mhm.
Definitely
Nope.
wrong. But I kind of like that though. I like when you have a bad guy and they just go in on it. Like he is just a bad
Sure.
guy, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Because so many movies do the bad guy, but they give him like he's a bad guy, but he wears a cool leather jacket. You kind of want to be like him, or he's a bad guy with a heart of gold because he's had a bad upbringing. No, Roach just sucks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just hissable. Like when he comes on screen, you just want to hiss.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote in my notes, Roach cannot die soon enough.
I thought Jason said kissable, and I did not know where we were going with that.
I kind of heard that for a second too.
Like every time you see him, you'll punch him.
Oh my God.
Jason's like, I hate him so much, I'm gonna make out with that guy.
So let's talk about so basically there's the Billy Zane guy is like the head demon, and then he like conjures up all these like minions, and the only way to kill them is by shooting them in the eyes, which is cool. And that's one of the things I love about this movie is it has like a set of rules
It
that you can kind of
does,
follow
yeah.
along with. It's actually once you buy into it, it's well thought out. So like you have to shoot them in the eyes. They can't go through once there's a blood seal. All these things
Well,
like
and then
that.
there's the whole backstory, which is just so strangely epic
Right.
for a Tales from
Yeah.
the Crypt standalone movie.
Yeah, we'll get there in 1 second.
Yeah.
But what made me think of this is so if you shoot them in the eyes like shoot like lasers kind of back out. So these are like the only two real CGI effects that I noticed in the movie was like when there's a seal, there's like kind of like a little bubble thing that happens in the area. Then when they shoot them in the eyes, these like I don't know if it's CGI or just animation. But like again, there's such a good mix of practical because the demons look freaking awesome. And you've got a mix of practical and CGI, and it works because the CGI stuff is used where CGI works well, and the practical is used where the practical stuff works well.
And I feel like they know it's 1995, right? So they know CGI is not up to the level of practical effects at this point. So they used it really sparingly when they needed to.
Yeah.
It's actually a great Rob Zombie quote, and that's really weird to say that, right? Rob Zombie talked. If you guys have ever seen Devil's Rejects, there's a moment where they throw a knife at one of the women, and that's the only CGI effect in the whole movie. And Rob Zombie, for all things I disagree with him about, he said it's only good CGI if you can't tell it's CGI.
Yeah.
And but that applies to modern stuff. But I do love in these old movies when they have kind of that cheesy CGI because it just kind of fits. It just makes sense, and I really did enjoy those scenes.
Now, when you shoot the demons in the eyes, they shoot these lasers. If you don't move out of the way, they can hit you back.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of cool. And again, this is making me think of Aliens, where again, if you shoot the xenomorph, it shoots acid blood at you. So you have to move out of the way. So again, I'm going to go more deeper into this comparison than later on. But again, I like that there's rules. Though my question is, what constitutes a door or a window? So if you punch a hole,
that's complicated.
in the wall, does that mean the demon can go through the wall, or does it go all the way around?
See, I thought the exact same thing. And then I realized that these are the things I think about that make me not enjoy something as much as I should. So I just, and I'm dead serious. I'm joking about it, but I'm dead serious when I say that. Like, I try not to think of those because sometimes in horror films or in fantasy films or in action films, we know that car can't jump that bridge, but we're going to accept that because it's just,
this is just
the constraints are working in,
But no, I like that they have the rules. They're sticking to them, and you can poke holes if you try really, really hard. But it's not meant to be that deep.
So was it Wally that killed the first demon?
The very first, I don't remember.
When he shoots him in the eyeballs.
Wally saves Cordelia by shooting.
So Wally saves Cordelia after Roach leaves her out there.
Okay.
And then Cordelia has this kind of like realization about that Roach really doesn't care about anyone except for himself.
Well, the only thing that bummed me about that is. You had Breaker, who's like, shoot him in the eyes, but never warned him that, oh, by the way, the eyes are going to shoot laser bolts at you. You should jump out of the way. And then he almost dies.
So much time to explain things.
No,
I do think it's funny, though, because later we find out some stuff about Wally. Because Wally is a really good shot, like shooting directly into the eyes, pow, pow. And then we find out some stuff later. They're like, oh, okay.
That makes sense. I never made that connection. And I always wondered, like, wow.
I didn't until just now.
I was thinking, it must be actually pretty hard to shoot someone directly in the eyes like that.
Yeah. I mean,
Breaker's been doing it for a long.
hard.
Breaker's been doing it for literally hundreds of years or 100 years.
Yeah, and I gotta say, this actress that plays Cordelia, Brenda Bake, I'm not sure how.
I'm not sure how to say it.
She's really good. Like, I know she's been in other stuff, but like, she really conveyed, like, she's very pretty, she's very sexy, so she's got like the sex worker, look down. But then she's just so sad, and then she's got Roach, and then she's got the Collector. Like, she doesn't deserve either of these assholes come in and try to like ruin her.
And you know what? Like, what I loved about her acting is you can tell the director told her you're a sex worker, and here's your backstory, and she didn't have to tell you that with her words. You just saw it in her acting.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was actually really surprised because I immediately looked her up on IMDb to see what else she's been in, and nothing really that I've seen. But I was like, man, like where's her? She should be a star. Like she was great.
Yeah, well, and Natalie, you were talking about how progressive this movie is. Like that, I don't notice any judgment of Cordelia at any point. Like all the people know what she's doing, they know what her job is, and everyone's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, the only person who judges her is Roach, who says, "Horse don't have friends."
Well, but Roach is a bad guy.
Then she gets it back on him later when she says, "Assholes don't have friends."
Yes.
She was like, "Okay, good. She landed one on him there. Good for her. Good for her." But no, you're right. Actually, it's just kind of like, she rents out a room at this boarding house and does her business there, and everybody just kind of minds their own business. Yeah. Good point.
They see the light swinging, and Jada just kind of smiles. I know what's going on up there.
Yeah, she's doing her business up there. But I actually hadn't made that connection about Wally either. I knew, I had a feeling that even the first time I saw the movie, that when they started talking about how he was upset about getting fired from the post office, anybody who was, a teenager or an adult in the 90s remembers the whole going postal thing.
Going postal, yeah.
You know, and so I was like, oh, is this where they're going with this guy? And then later you find out, yeah, that is where they're going with that guy.
Yeah, but not to be a downer, it's also crazy because in the 90s, you know, there are some post office shootings, and now just shootings are a way of life in America at this point.
Oh,
That's true.
God,
So
yeah.
it's kind of crazy how like kids today wouldn't understand that term because
No.
it's not really in our vocabulary anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to say, Charles Fleischer will never not be the voice of Roger Rabbit to me.
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I know he's done other stuff, but like, he's Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
He's also. I was watching the first Nightmare on Elm Street
Yeah, he's
a
in
couple
that.
weeks ago, and he is the sleep doctor when Nancy
Oh.
goes to get sleep tested.
No
and
way.
like I saw him
He's just
pop up.
in it
I'm
for
like,
like a few minutes, but yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I know this guy, and I like had to look him up on TV real quick to figure it out. So at this point in the movie, Cordelia is upset. She goes up to her room, and this is where you first get the first sequence where the collector has the ability to kind of present to you, try to seduce you. He kind of like
Yeah,
creates,
it's really a seduction.
seduction, but he creates like what's the word I'm thinking of? A mirage,
Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of vision.
vision.
He's kind of
Shows-
showing them like this is what your life could be like if you succumb to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. He figures out what everybody's weakness is and goes for that.
Right.
Right.
And hers, he's just like love. I can give you
Yeah.
love. I can.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he's full of bullshit. Everyone, I'm sure she knows he's full of bullshit, but she wants it so bad that
Mhm.
she ultimately succumbs to that. And this is like our first like time we actually see a person,
Poor Cordelia.
or Cordelia.
I mean, she's probably the most tragic character in the whole thing when you think about it.
Mhm.
Like, she didn't deserve this.
Right.
No, not at all.
And then Wally goes up to check on her, and then she kind of seduces him. But they do that thing, I think it's called the Dutch angle, where the camera, instead of like being straight on, is like kind of tilted.
Yeah.
And that's how you know something's off, because the angle's off. And she ends up killing Wally and turning into a demon. And there's a nice little scene where like her like jaw kind of elongates and falls
Oh,
off.
yeah.
And really
Yeah,
cool.
once again, I want to point out the special effects in this movie are so cool. The monster effects all across the board.
Absolutely.
They were done by a dude named Todd Masters,
Mhm.
and he had done some Tales from the Crypt episodes. He did the movie Slither, which also has some crazy cool special effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was involved in the new Child's Play, so he's done a ton of stuff. He's all over the place and won a lot of Emmys, and he's a big effects guy.
Also, shout out to the actors who play the demons, the minions.
Yeah.
'Cause their physical performances are really cool because they're in like these
Yeah.
like, super skinny outfits. So they have to be super skinny themselves to
Mhm.
be able to put on these outfits and still look super skinny. You've got these like cool like hair.
And they do the head movements and the body
Yeah.
movements and stuff.
You've got like piercings. I don't know if you noticed that. Like some have like nipple piercings, some have like
Yeah.
nose bowl
Mhm.
rings. And it's just so creepy and so cool. And they're also like their feet are like hooves. So
Mhm.
they're, I think, was it bipedal or tripedal? Where they're kind of like walking at a weird angle.
Yeah.
It's so unsettling. Let's see. Okay, so in the ensuing struggle, Wally's killed, and CCH Pounder Irene loses her arm.
Oof,
That
yeah.
scene was so awesome.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad for Irene. Like I wanted my heart of hearts. I wanted her to survive at the end. I was so bummed.
I mean, she
Yeah.
makes it pretty far with the one arm.
Oh,
Yeah.
she does. That is a badass woman. She's like, I got
Yeah.
one arm now.
Yeah.
Fuck these demons.
Mhm.
I got them. Like,
And for the actress, they actually had her wear a fat suit. So that way, when she eventually lost her arm, she could just hide her arm in the fat suit.
Yeah.
With the prosthetic sticking out.
Okay. Makes sense.
Oh, but
I mean-
Fat suits tend to look weird because their face just doesn't match kind of what their body looks like.
Yeah.
You get this
I
kind
mean-
of distortion effect.
Breaker, William Sadler, is, like a very seasoned character actor, right?
Mhm.
And like every time I see him in something, I'm like, oh yeah, he's solid. I feel the exact same way about CCH Pounder. Like,
Oh yeah.
she's been in everything, she's been around forever. And whenever she's in something, you're like, oh, it's going to be good.
yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Thank you for letting me watch the William Sadler interview
Mhm.
early. It was very enjoyable, and I always associate him. I mean, he's probably done other parts, but when I think of him, I think of like an intense, hard-boiled side character, or like in this movie, the main character, right? But like, he comes off like a chill hippie grandpa in the interview. He's just like,
Yeah.
he's just a lovely dude, totally not intense, totally just like, nice. And, I enjoyed the difference between his persona and then just his personal vibe.
Yeah, I'm kind of super bummed I couldn't be on either of those because of work. Because I think Jason just intensely schedules everything while I'm working. But but I listened to part of it. Yeah, and I'm like, the guy he's just got cool vibes. And for these guys, and to these guys to do an interview with us, and we're kind of a startup podcast. That's pretty fucking
Amazing.
rad. And they don't seem like they're not Hollywooding us or anything. They're just like, fucking hey, man, I'll talk to those guys. Like it legitimately seemed like they both had a good time.
Absolutely.
They just enjoy talking about their craft. And I think part of that when it comes to celebrities is that they get it, right? They get it like, I'm here because these people love what I've done and love what I do, and I want to give it back. And that just, I don't know, it means a lot to me.
And John Kassir especially, he's just a natural performer. He can just talk and talk and talk and talk. Because I listened to another interview he did that was even longer than ours, and like he went into more details and more stories. And like that guy should really do a one-man show. He could easily do that. Just command the stage for 2 hours for the entire time, and he would love it.
So, Jason, can we get into the epicness of the backstory?
Hold on, let's talk about I think we have to do the tunnel scene.
Oh, okay.
The tunnel happened first.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Because they're stuck upstairs. So let's get back into it.
Okay.
So at this point, there's a cat that keeps disappearing, reappearing, and they're not sure how it's getting in and out of the house. So they follow it downstairs, and it turns out there's a tunnel that goes underneath the house, and like there's old mines and stuff. So there's a sequence. It doesn't really amount to a ton, where they go through the tunnels. It's creepy. I'm sure if you're in the movie theater, it's all dark and everything. This is a creepy sequence. As far as plot goes, it doesn't really do a whole lot, except it just shows how people aren't going to listen to Breaker and they just want to do what they want to do.
It's almost like Breaker was a modern day scientist.
Almost. So they're going through the tunnels and they find a kid that we happened to see in like one scene earlier that is hiding because I guess the collector went back into the town, possessed a bunch of people, and now they're like come on the loose. And this kid is hiding in the tunnels. So they pick up a kid. His parents are possessed and they kind of come at them, and then they kind of run back out towards the house. And then Roach, being the asshole he is, shoots one of the demons, which I guess breaks the seal. This part I was a little fuzzy on.
Yeah.
It breaks the seal for whatever reason. So now the demons are able to get into the house. So they'll have to run back up to go up to the second floor, and they kind of seal off the second floor. So now they're kind of right back where they were, but now they're kind of stuck in the upstairs area. But this is where they're kind of like, okay, Breaker, tell us what the fuck's going on here. And I don't know why he waits this long to spill the beans.
Yeah, but you know what's kind of cool, though, is you talk about how this movie borrows a lot from other horror films. This was kind of that zombie. This had Night of the Living Dead vibes to me. How they're trying to escape the zombies, barricade themselves. Not zombies, obviously, in this movie, but they're trying to escape the demons, barricade themselves. I really love that.
Yeah, no. This is, again, when you get steal from the best. And make it your own. And I feel, again, it's taken me 20 years to really make these connections. I'm just kind of bringing it up now. But basically, they're stuck up there. They said, Breaker, what's going on? And then he gives them the story. So now, do you want to fill us in?
Yeah, and before I do that, I apologize, Mondo. So this is the office that I work in during the day, and I'm usually good at getting all the animals out, like when I have a session or whatever. But a cat was hiding, and she came out and started meowing. So let me.
No, you're good. I'm leaving this in.
Yeah.
I'm all about animal interruptions.
No, Luna, get out.
So if a cat is just showing up and like disappearing, isn't that? I mean, this is all coming together. This is exactly what's happening in the movie.
I mean, Natalie could be in peril right now. We're all just laughing about it. So it's.
There we go. I got her out. So, okay. So the backstory, hang on. So, I mean, like I said, this movie is oddly but greatly epic, right? Because like before Breaker kind of breaks it all down, you have these little flashes of him, right? Like that seem to be taking place in like a long time ago, right? And it's not explained until this part. So essentially what it is this key that the collector is trying to get from him and that he's trying to keep from the collector has this blood in it, right? And so the idea was that when God created, I'm not going to completely get it right, but when God created the universe, there was like earth, and then there was like this darkness, right? The demon realm, right? Which is where these demons come from. And the demons didn't want to be relegated just to their darkness, right? So they came up with trying to get a way to like invade the good world that God had created. And so what God did was he filled these keys with, and I wrote down this quote because there's something interesting about it. To save it, God filled it with the blood of a carpenter who was being crucified by the Romans and gave it to a thief named Sirach. Which I want to talk about that for a second. But essentially, some of Jesus's blood is in these keys, right? And so the idea was that they've all been scattered, and it's not until they're all brought back together that the demons might be able to take things over, and that this is the last key, right? The demons have gotten all the other keys, right?
They're spread out through the cosmos.
Yeah, so Breaker is desperately trying to keep the key from them, because if they get the key, we're done, right? And so there are these. Now, here's the thing that I didn't even, this is going to make me sound real dumb, but I didn't realize. So for a long time, I thought the name of this movie was Demon Night, like without the K. I just assumed that it was like demon. It's a night of demons. It's Demon Night. And it wasn't until like 10 years
Night of the
ago,
Demons is a different movie.
What was that?
Night of the Demons is a different
right,
movie.
that's a different movie, yeah. So it wasn't until like 10 or 15 years ago that I actually looked at the cover and I was like, oh, wait, it's like a knight on a horse night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but then I was like, who is the demon knight? Right? Because it's not Billy Zane, he's the collector, right? So when I watched the movie this time around, I came to realize that the protectors of the keys are the demon knights,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the idea is that over time, these different demon knights have passed the key along. They live extra long, right? And their goal is to protect the key and to pass it on to the person who is going to be the next demon knight, right? And along the way, they all put a little bit of their blood in it too, right? Because sometimes you got to use the blood like Breaker does in this movie, right? So it's kind of a mixture of all these people's bloods. And so real quick, I thought it was interesting because when he said the line, Jesus was being crucified by the Romans and gave it to a thief named Sirach, I thought, is that the thief that was being crucified alongside Jesus? The answer is no. That guy has a lot of different names, and this is all per Wikipedia. Jason, did you do this research as well?
No, I mean, I assume because so what's cool is they never actually say the name Jesus. They just say a carpenter.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
They show three guys on a cross.
Yeah, they show the guys on and they show like at one point Roach is trying to pound down a wall, and as he's pounding the wall, Breaker gets this flashback to the nails being driven in. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of implication there, but they don't actually say it.
Well, but it's pretty darn clear.
Well, no, I mean, it's very clear implication.
Well,
it's a cool example of show don't tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have said this is Jesus' blood. Instead, they said no, it's a carpenter.
I don't know about you guys, but the scene, the way they shot it when he's getting the blood from Jesus or from the carpenter, that gave me straight Phantasm vibes. From when they go into the Phantasm Nether Realm, I geeked out on that because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a weird deserty setting with like it's not quite natural. Like it's really cool looking.
And just for a little bit of piece of trivia, the demons that were unsuccessful, they eventually went on to try to call you every day to sell you a car warranty. Just to let you know that.
That's right. Yes. Or sometimes I get demons who tell me that there was a fraudulent purchase on my Amazon account.
And we need your social security number to resolve this.
Right. So for those of you, I was raised Catholic, which means I'm not Catholic anymore.
Me too.
So great. High five. So we, Jesus was crucified with like the good thief and the bad thief, right? So I was like, oh, was this Sirach one of those guys? Because I couldn't remember their names. He's not. Those guys have different names. And if you go to Sirach, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, you could go to the Wikipedia page. I had never heard of this before. The Book of Sirach, also called the Wisdom of Sirach, or simply Sirach, and known as the Book of Ecclesiasticus, is a Jewish work originally in Hebrew of ethical teachings, written by the Jewish scribe Ben Sira of Jerusalem. I was like, I've never heard of this. You know what I mean? Like, this is cool. Like, they did like a lot of research.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we haven't interviewed the writers yet, but yeah, these are questions I really want to ask them.
Oh, I want to find out
100%.
what they say about that.
I think we need Natalie on that interview now because I feel so much dumber right now.
And
I
one of the
literally
things,
just Googled.
and one of the things now let's talk even more about this Monaco. So one of the things we learned when we talked to William Sadler, which comes on in a couple of days, is that he kind of rewrote a little bit of this whole speech. And what and when we're talking to him, what occurred to me that this is the Jaws monologue. So the speech where Quint talks about the Indianapolis. I never really made this connection, but this is his moment to kind of give this really cool monologue. And the actor, what's his name, who played Quint, Robert Shaw, rewrote the scene a little bit himself. And Sadler, almost in a traditional way, rewrote this scene a little bit. And this is kind of his Jaws scene to kind of like lay down the heavy and kind of give them the stakes of what they're going for. And at the very end, he says, now you know. Do you feel better?
Yeah.
He wrote that line.
And all the reaction shots of everyone just kind of staring like, oh, crap.
Like, this is even worse than we had ever imagined.
Again, there's two things I really love. I mean, two of the many things I love about this movie is one, again, that it has this cool set of rules that really sticks to you. And the second is this mythology is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to go into it, you could pick any stage of history. You could go to medieval times, you could go the Civil War.
That was the thing that I was like, reading about this, and I know Jody might get into this later, but like how the other supposedly standalone Tales from the Crypt movies, like Bordello of Blood, I've never even bothered watching because it just looks horrendous. And then there's this third one that is like pseudo the third movie.
Yeah.
And neither of those
that Ritual?
Yeah.
Ritual.
Neither of those were what was originally planned. I was like, why didn't they just make 3 of these?
This was originally supposed to be the second movie in a trilogy.
But like Jason,
The backstory is really complicated.
right? But no, but like Jason is saying, like there's so much more story you could tell here.
Definitely.
Right.
Like why didn't they just go with this?
The graphic novel, or even I think I'm sure there's some fan fiction out there. I'm more on the hunt.
There's gotta be.
Oh, there's fan fiction of everything.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, like you could go into the past throughout different decades, or you could go like what happens to Geraldine after she becomes a midnight. Now, again, when you're talking about the demon knight as the knight, there is a part where the collector is trying to seduce Geraldine, and he said no one's ever brought a demon knight over before, so no one's ever successfully seduced a demon knight, and that's kind of the point where I remember I was watching someone like, oh yeah, he's talking about like a knight in shining armor, like as a title, and not just okay, so he breaks this all down, and then everyone kind of like goes off. I think the kid goes missing at this point, and everyone kind of goes off, and then you see Roach reaches into Breaker's jacket and takes the key. Motherfucker.
I was about to say motherfucker too, so I'm gonna have to go with that son of a bitch.
Yeah, I'm closing my eyes and shaking my head. I have more to say about Roach in a minute, but yeah.
I like to think that Roach eventually goes into an alternate timeline where he becomes buddies with Paul Giamatti and starts drinking wine, and he's still kind of a dick. But
yeah, totally. That's a Sideways reference in case anyone doesn't get it.
That's like the best movie, but why is it 2 hours long? That's another podcast.
Yes, everyone kind of goes off, and Roach is like, "Oh, I'll stay here in case he comes back," which makes no sense because there's like 4 rooms to look at.
Don't trust Roach. Why did they trust Roach?
Everyone kind of disappears, and then Roach kind of like goes over the blood barrier, and then the collector comes out with a couple of his minions, and says, "Hey, Roach, what you got there?" And Roach tries to make a deal with the devil, which never goes well. And then leads to one of the best parts of the movie, always cracks me up, is where once they make the deal, the collector says, first thing you gotta do is break the blood seal.
Yeah.
And he opens his mouth and the sponge just
Yeah. I love it so much.
So good.
I have to find
so
a GIF.
good.
I'm gonna post that because it's not just a sponge, but like he like moves his eyebrows like, hey.
Oh, and so here's another trivia for you. Billy Zane came up with that because he thought it sounded like a fun thing to do.
That's awesome. I love that.
So in this movie, I think Billy Zane was having the best time of anyone ever. Like he seems like he's having fun from moment one till the end.
Off trap. Yeah, one of my favorite things about this and like Tales from the Crypt, it gave this platform for these great actors just to kind of be goofy
Play.
and do whatever
Yeah.
they wanted to do, and I absolutely love that about it.
We'll
Like,
get
you know,
actually
some
no.
actors-
There's one person who had more fun in one scene. We'll get to that in 1 second.
What's that, Natalie?
I was going to say, some actors, when they chew the scenery, like it's a bit much. I could watch Billy Zane chew the scenery like this forever.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
and,
of
and, you know,
course,
and Billy Zane is also number 3 on my list of men with the best eyelashes of all time. Number
question is, Mondo,
number
who's
1 and
gonna
2
win?
being Jason and Jody, obviously, but
Okay. Makes sense. Can I say something more about Roach, or was
Oh.
that where you were going, Jason?
Yes, go ahead.
It's just like, when Roach is striking this deal, which obviously doesn't work for him and ends in his death, rightfully so, by the way. Does he not understand two things? Does he not understand that by giving Billy Zane what he wants, that will make the world, including himself, go away?
He
Like,
said it's okay. He doesn't mind this demon world because he has hemorrhoids.
So
I'm not sure how that relates.
I wrote, this is Jody, where I wrote down in the margins, America is filled with roaches right now.
oh my god! You know what? When I release this, when I put this on the site, that's the only tagline to me on the whole episode is "America is filled with roaches right now."
God.
I think he had that mentality of honor amongst thieves, right? Like, yeah. you'll fuck over all these people because they're righteous, but I'm like you, and you're not gonna fuck me over. Which is why it's all the more satisfying when he gets fucked over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, and
One more thing. I lied.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh,
And
good.
it's like, what else were you expecting, dummy?
Exactly. But that's what's so great about it is we all knew what was going to happen, and this guy didn't.
Yeah. I mean, for God's sake, Roach. Ugh.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So the collector now has the key. But he needs to kill the demon knight, I guess. He needs to kill, because basically the whole point is that there's 7 people that were at the house, and one of those 7 people is going to become the next demon knight.
Mhm.
So I think he has to make sure he kills everyone, so the line of demon knights is over. For whatever reason, I guess he can't just go and take the key and do his thing.
Because movie.
So
Yeah.
at this point, they're looking for the kid, and they find a stash of weapons and a letter from Wally saying that he loves Cordelia and he's going to murder everyone at work. So this is where they realize that Wally was actually crazy and dangerous. Unfortunately, none of the weapons have any ammo, but they do find like a vest or of some sort with a bunch of grenades attached. So
A lot of
that's-
grenades.
a lot of grenades, a lot of bang bangs. So Breaker also finds, this is what I was talking about. So Dick Miller is awesome. We all know he's, a legendary actor. He's been acting
He's a
since
man.
the
Yep.
50s. He's been acting for like 60 years.
Mhm.
Rest in peace, because I think he passed away in 2019.
Yeah.
He was in Gremlins, Night of the Creeps, The Burbs, The Howling, so many things.
Don't forget, oh my gosh.
He was in
Why am I blanking? The mall, the one in the mall. Shopping mall.
Shopping mall.
Shopping Mall. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he gets the scene where the collector tries to seduce him, and Dick Miller's character is an alcoholic because he's always trying to sneak a drink of the pooch. And the collector seduces him by taking him to some tropical bar filled with topless women
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and trying to give him drinks. And I'm thinking, like, Dick Miller must have had the best time ever filming this scene.
Well, I love Billy Zane in that. He's got the
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
the
Mhm.
captain's hat and the sunglasses, like complete douchebag.
Chomping on that cigar.
Yeah, complete douchebag outfit. Perfectly
Yeah.
befitting a demon. It's
But
fantastic.
it's funny because the scene starts and it's funny, right? You're like, of course,
Mhm.
this is what Uncle Willie would be, like a tropical bar with a bunch of topless women with huge boobs, right? Like, and they're all like, Uncle Willie, right? And then you see like the Billy Zane hamming it up. But then when they get to that part where like, this is what a great actor Dick Miller was, like,
Mhm.
he turns it, right? It's like it gets sad, because
Yeah.
you can see it. At first he's like, yeah, this is great, but then he realizes what's going on. And this is the addiction therapist in me. He realizes what's going on, and then he realizes that he's willing to do it no matter what,
Yeah.
because he's an alcoholic, and how sad that is, right? And Dick Miller sells that,
Yeah, he knows what the consequences are. He knows exactly. He plays the tape to the end.
Uh-huh.
He still
And
can't.
he still says, yeah, I want the booze.
Now I will say, just like Mondo, that is probably of a movie filled with great Billy Zane scenes, that might be my favorite. There's something about him just hamming it up with that big cigar chomping and the hat and the whole. Like,
Yeah,
I love it.
He's hamming it up, but he's still playing just in line with being an asshole demon. Like,
Yeah,
that's the kind of guy. If he showed up at your party, you'd be like, "I'm gonna punch that guy in the face after 3 more beers."
mm-hmm.
So then Dick Miller's character, Uncle Willie, gets possessed, and then he like attacks the kid and he attacks Breaker, and then there's a bit of a struggle. They have to cut off his head and destroy the eyes, yada yada yada.
They just cut off the kids. It's fine.
Yeah. So, but this is where Breaker finds like a bow and arrow. So then the collector is roaming the second floor, and then Breaker hits him in the head with a arrow. The collector falls. Yeah, great, cool, like point of view of the arrow shot, almost like Dead style.
Oh, well done.
So the collector falls over, drops the key, so they get the key back, thankfully. But now the demons are coming up, and all the only people that are left are Breaker, Geraldine, the kid, Irene, CCH Pounder, and the deputy, who's like been useless this entire time.
Yeah.
He runs out of ammo real quick at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I forgot to say this when I mentioned that Gary Farmer, who plays the deputy, is indigenous. He was also in Blood Quantum.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, he's one of those Native American actors that, like, you know, along with like a few other that like they've been in all the Native American Hollywood made movies. Not that Blood Quantum was Hollywood, it was Canadian, but just I mentioned that because it was a recent movie we've probably all seen.
Oh, nice.
Right. Okay. So now they're trying to retreat, trying to find like a safe haven. I guess there's is it steeple? What's the word for like the
yeah? It's a little area in the
little
steeple.
crow's nest up there.
Yeah. So that's kind of like their last place of refuge. And Irene and Deputy Bob, is that his name?
Bob. Yep.
Bob. They decide to stay behind, sacrifice themselves with all those grenades. And again, this reminded me again of Aliens, where Vasquez and it was Gorman blow themselves up while they're being cornered by the aliens. So again, I have no problem with them, copying that. That's great. That gives a nice, satisfying end to them. It gives Deputy Bob something, to do. So now they're kind of caught up. It's just Breaker, the kid, and Geraldine.
Right, and this scene is so good. This is one of the scenes that I've always remembered for all 26 years. And I remember when I was watching it going, wow, this is really good. The scene where the kids' comic book pages are flipping and the cut between that and the movie and that and the movie.
It's super cool.
Yeah, so the kid's in the corner. He's reading a comic book. He's reading a comic book, and the comic book panels are matching what's happening in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of coming to life a little bit. And then this is what I realized. This is a meta part that I never really thought of. How funny is it that an EC comic is leading to a kid being corrupted?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure that's intentional.
That scene gave me super Creep Show vibes. That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, this reminds me of the intro of Creep Show, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Right.
And then so the kid becomes possessed. Because you read the comic book. I think that's and then because Breaker now realizes that Geraldine is the one. He says, "You're the one. You're the new demon knight, essentially." And he's trying to give her the key. She's trying to come to grips with what this means for the rest of her life. But then the kid is possessed, and like he does that again. He grabs the key and he does that thing where his mouth starts falling apart, and his body like starts disintegrating, like his like super long icky tongue.
Gets
like,
a tail.
Attacks Breaker and like jabs him in the chest. And of course, Geraldine, kills. I think she pushes him through the window.
Yeah, kicks him out the window.
That's been sealed with the blood seal, so he like explodes. And that cool like 90s shot of the sneaker falling. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just seems like a very 90s thing where someone explodes, but the sneaker is fine. And then this is where Breaker is dying. Also, I think we skipped over this part, but the collector did try to seduce Geraldine and Irene, actually, both of them. And he tries to give Irene a new arm.
Right. On a plate.
On a plate. He's like, oh, we got the special today. It's fresh new arm. And she kind of points her stub at him, and he says, yes. He's like, no, that's me giving you the finger.
Yeah.
Irene cannot be bought.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, since Irene rejected the collector, She could have been the new Demon Knight before she blew herself up.
That's
Yes.
a good
Right?
point. That's a good point.
And I would definitely watch that movie too.
Yeah.
Same.
Like Irene, the new Demon Knight with one arm going around fighting the Collector. Amazing.
I love Irene.
So he tried to seduce her, and he also tried to seduce Geraldine by showing her like how glamorous she could be, and like all this trips and things, and this better life because she's, kind of down on her luck. Doesn't have much means. He also tells her that eventually Breaker's going to die. He kind of, again, plays the tape to the end a little bit and says, there's no way in the situation where Breaker does not die. And that kind of comes to fruition a little bit. I think that shakes Sterling even more, saying, oh, crap, he was right. But I think she kind of accepts the role. She takes the Breaker's blood, puts it she fills up the key, essentially, because she needs that.
At this point, it's just the two of them now. We just have Geraldine.
Darlene.
Geraldine.
Yeah, the names are.
Yeah, no, I keep wanting to say the wrong thing. Geraldine and the Collector are the only two left now. So it's a battle one-on-one.
Yep.
Right. So the Collector kind of has this really cool shot where he just kind of rises up from the ground. So like there's like a stairs. I'm supposed to go up to this little steeple, but he like rises up with this like backlight, and he has these really cool sunglasses again in the 90s. Those cool, I think like Oakley's or something like that. Those kind of wraparound glasses. And he says, you're the only one left. Might as well come over to the dark side. Give me the key. There's nothing left to really happen here. And she's like she's stripped down, but she's kind of covered in blood. He thinks she's been injured, but no, she covered herself in Breaker's blood. Again, if the blood touches the demon gets hurt. So the demon can't touch her, so he kind of runs away, and then she's kind of
he doesn't just run away. He does like a little dive through the hole.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's almost kind of like the ending of Predator in a way, where it's like, okay, we've got rid of all the other characters. Now it's these this cat and mouse game between the two people. It's kind of been whittled down. So she's kind of, going around trying to find him. And then there's a bathroom where they get to put the body in the head of the sheriff. And she notices the curtain, the bathroom curtain is missing. And then he grabs her from behind with the curtain and washes off the blood. So now she's kind of defenseless. And then he grabs the key.
She is a smart final girl. She figures out what to do. Yep.
Yeah, it was really smart. And then she has the key, but I guess the key is not as harmless if it doesn't have the blood in it. So I guess the key kind of slips out, and he like starts pouring it out, but then she grabs it and pours a bunch of blood into her mouth.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
The mouthfeel of that must be.
She's willing to do what needs to be done, even if it's gross.
Yeah.
Respect.
Then, yeah, exactly. Right. So she's got this mouthful of blood. He's washing her off, and then he takes her downstairs, and like he tries to seduce her, which he says, no one's ever brought a Demon Knight over before. And he kind of, again, this is Billy Zane like turning up to like 15.
Right. And I was actually, I wrote a note like, he kind of has it all right. Got the key. He doesn't know she has a mouthful of blood, but he's got the key. He could easily kill her, but he's gotten too big for his britches now. And he's like, no, I don't want that. I want all this, and I want to seduce you. Yes. And that's his downfall, right?
Which is kind of a classic Tales from the Crypt.
Well, it's a classic horror trope, because I've always said that Freddy could kill so many people if he just walked up to them and stabbed them. But no, but much like the Collector is, part of the enjoyment is the game behind it, and the fear and the seduction. So it's I like that.
Freddy's just got to be too creative and tell all the jokes, and then he gets killed.
Because I can kill this person, but I've only made 3 wisecracks, and my quota is 5. So I don't get paid if I don't make 5 wisecracks.
And Geraldine tries to stab him with the key in the eye, and he like pretends that he's hurt, but he's really not. He's just fucking with her.
Yeah.
And he says that only works on low-level demons, which makes you realize that there's actually probably a hierarchy at some point. So maybe again, he's thinking that if we can turn Geraldine over with him and bring the key back, maybe he'll get a promotion to whatever is a higher demon. So who knows?
So as you said earlier, like
the regional manager demon.
Yeah. As you said before, stage 1 demons, you get a cubicle and a phone, and you cold call people about goddamn car warranties.
This is how you know they're from hell, because they're working in a hierarchy in a business situation.
There you go. I like that. Yep.
And it bites him in the end. So yeah, he's like trying to convince her. He's like, "Mom and Dad are gonna love you." And then like he does this great little thing where he gets a little aggressive, and he like throws her down, and his like pants make like unzipping noise, and like this like I don't know how you explain, like a lightning bolt comes out of his crotch. And he's like, "Down, boy, down." And my wife happened to walk by.
That's the only other use of CGI in the movie.
Yeah. My wife like walks by at this point. She's like, "What is this?"
See,
That's kind of funny.
they use CGI for that, and all they had to do was hire William Dafoe. Missed opportunity.
That would have been confusing because he's confusing me.
Well,
They wanted to make it pretty obvious what was going on.
okay.
No confusion.
So as he's doing his bit, and then Jolie's got the mouthful bush, so she can't say anything or really react, but you can tell she's like terrified, and she's not responding. He gets mad and everything. And then he's like, "You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna kill you." And he says, if I can't have your soul, I'll have your heart. And he's got like a fingernail that's really long and sharp. And he's about to rip it out. At that point, Jolene spits all the blood onto his face. And then there's this really cool sequence where like his face melts, his body starts disintegrating. And then this really cool demon, I don't know what the hell, is a model or a puppet or
big
like
wing thing.
Yeah, like showing his true demon nature, like comes out in flames, is like exploding. And the whole house kind of explodes, but she's protected by whatever force. And she's okay. The demon is destroyed. She refills. That's the next day. She refills the key. She knows she's got to move on, so she gets on the bus. And she makes a blood seal on the bus, which is again really smart.
Smart girl.
Though it makes you wonder how long blood in the key would really last. If everywhere you go, you have to seal like the rest of your life.
Well, that's why everybody has to refill it.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering about the bus, because the bus is full of windows. Like, it depends on how aggressive the collector is going to be.
Well, I feel like if you try to jump through the window, the bus driver would get slightly upset and he blows cover.
That's true.
It just depends on how aggressive the collector is. If the collector's like, "I'm going to blow up this bus," well, it doesn't matter if the door is sealed or not.
Do they mention if the Demon Knight can actually refill the vial with his own blood?
Yeah, I mean that's what happens.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
While they're still alive.
Yeah, I think Breaker was doing that at some point.
Yeah,
he did. Okay, I did. I must have missed that. Okay.
Yeah, the idea is that the blood is now a mixture. It's like some of it is Jesus' blood, but it's also the blood of each of the knights because you have to use it sometimes.
Yeah,
so they refill it.
Because I remember her filling it off his blood, but I didn't know he filled it himself off his blood. All right, cool.
Or she could have like got a canister and filled it with the rest of his blood.
It's a little bonus. Yeah. Little backup.
Now here's my question. So one thing they don't really talk about in the movie, he keeps saying all we have to do is survive the night. So what happens in the day? Does that mean the demons are weaker? They just can't do anything? They never really say what happens in the daytime, but we just assume.
It's just, I think it's the standard, bad things only happen at night in horror movies.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because the very last scene of the movie is the bus goes to the next stop and there's a well-dressed African-American guy who steps up to the bus, looks down, looks around the opening and says, "Nah, I'll take the next one." And he's obviously the new collector. But it's during the day. So that's why I was like a little confused for a second.
Well, and then not the best part of the movie, he walks away whistling the Tales from the Crypt theme.
That's right.
Yeah, that's so good.
And that was one of just a cool little Easter egg there.
Yeah.
Right. So then it kind of pans out over the desert. There's a grave with some fresh flowers. Of course, a hand pops out, grabs the flowers. It's this cool little shot where it's kind of going underground. And you can see like a mouse. You see a skeleton. And I was reading the trivia on this, and the skeleton had like a tag that said Hoffa. So supposedly, I guess, which is kind of funny. And of course, it brings us down to the crypt with the crypt keeper. He's going to the movie's premiere, and they go there.
Real quick, that was the Bruin Theater in Westwood, which is right by UCLA.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Yeah. So he's going to the movie premiere, but of course, his producers are there to give him final cut. And which of course includes a guillotine and they chop off his head, and then his head is laying in there, the Crypt Keeper, and he says, "That's entertainment." And then, of course, just like the show, we get the outro, the same outro we have on the show.
Yeah.
And that is Demon Knight with a
Love it.
teaser for a movie that didn't actually happen. Joy, do you want to talk about that?
What's that?
Do you want to talk about that little stinger at the end?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can. Is this trivia or am I just talking?
Well, let's just keep going.
Let's just keep going. Okay. So at the very end of the credits, the Crypt Keeper kind of pops back up in like a little Bugs Bunny kind of way with like whoop sound. And he said, you know, like, if you can't get enough of all the blood and guts, stay tuned for Dead Easy coming. And he gives a date. That never came. There was no movie called Dead Easy. It was intended to be the second film in a trilogy. There was going to be Dead Easy, which was a zombie story set in New Orleans, but it was abandoned. And there was going to be a movie called Body Count that didn't happen. So the only other follow-up official was Bordello of Blood a couple years later, which I know Natalie hasn't seen, but I kind of like. And then Ritual came later.
Well,
It's funny.
And Ritual is not an official one. It's a direct-to-video. It exists.
Yeah, I watched the trailer for Ritual just out of curiosity the other day, and from the trailer, it does not mention Tales from the Crypt whatsoever.
No. I feel like Ritual is one of those movies that they made, and then they were like, let's put Tales from the Crypt on it. Kind of like American Pie. Like there's all these American Pie movies that have nothing to do with American Pie. I think that's just they put a label on it to make it sound like you should watch it.
Yeah, it's like what Hellraiser became. It's all these other scripts that they just like threw Pinhead in, and now it's a Hellraiser movie.
But anyway, so yeah, the Crypt Keeper says, look out for Dead Easy. We're still waiting. It never happened.
Been looking out for a long time.
We all slowly become looking more like a Crypt Keeper as we wait. Okay, so what other thoughts do we have on this as a whole?
I'll
It's
say
just such a fun movie. This is a full out, like, get your popcorn, have a couple drinks, hang out with your friends, and just have a great time kind of movie.
It's interesting that their movie isn't based actually on an EC comic.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So they're kind of able to go a little bigger. They give you kind of what you want. There's some gore. There's plenty of gore. There's 2 instances of lots of boobs. But they give you something a little more grand, and the casting is so good, top to bottom.
Yeah. No, this cast is absolutely insane.
Oh,
Any movie with these actors in it is going to be at least worth watching. And then you get this good script, and then Ernest Dickerson's directing.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I love it so much.
Same.
And again, you have Billy Zane hamming it up, just gnawing on the scenery. William Sadler, he gives the character like this weight, the weight of a guy who has the fate of the universe is on his shoulders, and he's been doing this for like 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you find out that he was in World War I believe. Either World War I or World War II, the scene where he becomes the new Demon Knight. I believe it's World War I, in France. He just conveys that weight of everything. And then, you have Jada Pinkett Smith just being this badass, smart final girl. And again, this is where another alien thing, she's kind of the Ripley of it, where she's just kind of in the cast, and she's strong, but you don't really think that she's going to be the one to make it all the way through. And lo and behold, that's just how things shake out.
Mm-hmm.
And originally, I think they were going to do Cameron Diaz is who the studio wanted for that role.
What?
I'm glad that.
That would not have worked.
Yeah, nothing against Cameron Diaz, but this was not her role. Jada Pinkett Smith owned this role and made it her own.
Owns it. So good on her.
For what it's worth, I think Cameron Diaz can be very good, but she has a limited range.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's in that range, she's great. This role is not in that range.
It would have to have been a totally different setup for her to have done that. So I'm not saying she couldn't have, but for what it is right now, you could not have plugged her into that role as it is.
No.
And then all the other bit actors just have moments to shine, and they all just do really well.
Mm-hmm.
The effects, all the practical effects are really cool, really haunting. Because again, I didn't see this when it came out in the theater. That's one of the things I want to do. At some point, I need to see this in the movie theater. Because I remember the promos when I was a kid, seeing those demons scared the shit out of me as a kid. It was terrifying.
This is a really good looking movie. Like, I don't know what the budget was for it, but it looks freaking fantastic. Like and there was a whole string of 90s movies that just looked really well shot and like high budget, slick movies. This was before that trend, and it looks so good.
Yeah.
I would love to see it on a big screen in 4K. Like, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, no, my friend, so I went with my two friends. The one friend kind of peer pressured the two of us to go, because neither one of us were feeling a horror movie. And we went to Universal City Walk. It's still an AMC? Yeah, it's still an AMC.
Still an AMC.
Saw it up there. And my one friend who peer pressured us to go kept fucking with me the whole time, like whoa, like something's gonna happen, whoa, and I was just like, stop it, you asshole. But no, it was a blast to see on the big screen. And, it was just, we didn't see it opening weekend. I would have remembered seeing it like the weekend of my birthday. So it must have been a weekend after that. And the theater was just the three of us. And then a few rows in front of us, there was this family that was just crazy, like crazy in the best way. Like everything that happened in the movie, they were just like, "Wah!" And they were just like that the whole time, and it was so much fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same theater I saw Cabin in the Woods in. So that's a fun theater.
Yeah.
Okay.
So speaking of seeing this movie and the initial reception, what's crazy about this movie? This movie has a 38% positive on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, this movie was a huge bomb, which is just completely insane to me.
I need to look at this so I can never respect the opinions of anybody that hated this movie.
Well, that's exactly what I was going with that is, especially as a horror fan, critics are sometimes an interesting way to find out about a movie, but they are definitely not the final arbitrator of whether a movie is good or not.
I've said before that I used to be a huge fan of Roger Ebert, but I did not respect his opinion on horror. I'm the same way. Roger Ebert has a lot of good things to say, but when he starts talking about horror, I just don't listen anymore. Although I will say, in his later years, he did start respecting way more and more of the horror genre. But in his early years, he shit on everything, and I'm like, no, you're shitting all these good movies. And yeah, I think we look through horror through a different lens. I think that's okay. Like my main filter for a movie or my main review for a movie is when I'm done with the movie. Did I enjoy it? Did I have a good time? Was 100%. I entertained for 90 minutes? And if you entertain me for 90 minutes, I'm not going to have a whole lot of bad things to say about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, don't forget, this is 1995. So this is like a year. This is kind of like in that really lull in the 90s horror.
A year before Scream.
So that kind of kickstarted everything all over again. And I think in one of the other movies that they were trying to make into a Tales from the Crypt franchise movie was Dusk Till Dawn. Which, you could see that really fitting in. Yeah. But Tarantino didn't want to play ball, or there was something they couldn't get negotiation. So I don't know if that came out right before or right after this.
So I'm pretty sure that fell through because the producers of Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight wouldn't let Tarantino suck on Salma Hayek's toes.
Can we not put that image in my head? Like that just came up on Slack like a few weeks ago. I was telling Jared, like, that is the most egregious misuse of the foot fetish thing in any of Tarantino. I mean, I know that was a Rodriguez movie,
right? But
in any of Tarantino's work, like, that scene is the epitome of let this guy do this. Hyatt could not have felt good about this.
I think that Tarantino did that movie for free, and that was his payment was. Okay. And what's crazy is, like, you watch that and it's kind of weird, and then you get older and you read about why that scene is in there, and you're like, oh, ugh.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with having a fetish,
correct?
But like, Crypt Keeper, pun intended, shoehorning it into every single project that you do with these beautiful actresses is just like, it's creepy. Like, keep doing your personal life, suck on your wife's toes, whatever. Don't keep doing this, bro.
Well,
stop.
It's kind of weird when you write it into a film and you're in that scene knowing you have that fetish. And then it's one of those things where it's like, oh, are you only doing that so you can do this to an uncomfortable actress? And, I'm not putting words in Salma Hayek's mouth. Maybe she was cool with it. Maybe they talked about it. I don't know. But it's kind of weird. And I'm
Okay.
sorry to take us way off the rails, but
All right, yeah, this episode's running way late, and I love the contents, but let's move on a little bit. So let's do our rankings. Obviously, I'm a 5, I'm a 10, I'm a 100, whatever, as high as I can go. Natalie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jason, you and I originally bonded over discovering that we were both Demon Knight people. So, like, yeah, this movie is a 5, a 10, 100, whatever. It's tops for me.
Jody.
Yeah, no, I was a late arrival to Demon Knight, and the first time I saw it, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. But every time I watch it, I find more and more stuff that I like. And so it has moved from, I mean, it was like a 4 to begin with, but it has definitely moved up into that 5 category up on Subsequent watches.
All right, Mondo.
all right. So I'm gonna go with 2. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just
You asshole.
This is the last episode. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We're
no,
done.
it's a home run for me, man. It's a 5. It hits so many. It's got the kind of the cool, the gory moments. It's got the actual horror. It's got the comedy. It's a fun movie. You can't watch this movie and not have a smile on your face at the end. It's a 5 out of 5, no questions.
All right, let's move on to Mondo with your song of the day.
All right. I have an interesting one today. Well, not really. So Demon Knight had one of the coolest soundtracks as a young metalhead growing up. So I definitely own the soundtrack. What I love about it is it's got a very interesting track listing. And I also own this on vinyl. It's all these metal bands or like Ministry, industrial metal or whatever. And then the last track is a song by the Gravediggers. So I love the fact that it ends the soundtrack on the one song that kind of doesn't fit with the rest of the bands, but they fit because the Gravediggers were the best. 6 Feet Deep is one of my favorite records of all time. But I'm going to pick a band that was on the Demon Knight soundtrack, but I'm not going to pick the song on the soundtrack. Biohazard was on there. Biohazard being in New York, kind of a hardcore band, that they were really the purveyors of the whole rap metal movement, which other bands did very, very poorly. They did very, very well. Because they were literally a band of dudes from Brooklyn who grew up in a rough part of town. And they also did collaborations with the rap group Onyx back in the day, because they all kind of grew up in the same area of Brooklyn.
I remember Onyx.
Mhm.
Boy, that's a throwback. You just took me way back.
Oh, so if you watch a video for Slam, basically the only white guys in that video is Biohazard. And they actually collaborated later on. It was the movie with Emilio Estevez and the RV, and they're going to see a Judgment Night. Which is actually a really good movie and kind of an intense movie.
Yeah.
But they collaborated on that later on with the song Judgment Night. And what's interesting is they do a song on this soundtrack called Beaten, which has never appeared anywhere else except for the soundtrack. Not my favorite of their songs, to be honest. So I'm going to pick a song off of their album Urban Discipline. Urban Discipline came out in 1992, and it was considered, in my opinion, the best record they ever did. And it's a top 10 album of all time for me. On there, they have a song called Punishment, which ended up being their radio hit. And I say radio hit very loosely because they had to edit it, but it has an intro from Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher. But the word punishment just kind of fits very well because the bad people in this movie definitely got their punishment. But Urban Discipline's one of my favorite records of all time, and definitely, you haven't heard, like, everyone should listen to that album because you'll find pieces of it that were greatly influential upon albums that came out even 10 years later, 2 years later, 5 years later, and they don't get a lot of credit for what they did. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to somehow 6 degrees of separation bring this back to Demon Knight. The bassist of Biohazard went by the name of Evan Seinfeld. Well, that's his real name.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
You know where I'm going with this. All right. You might know where I'm going with it. I don't know. But he later on was in Oz, and he played a white supremacist in Oz, which is interesting because they never hid his Star of David tattoo on his chest or on his stomach. And he later on, he was married to Tara Patrick, the sex worker, and later on married to another one after that. I can't remember her name.
I think porn star is an okay term.
Is it
I've
okay?
worked with porn stars.
All right. Hey, she made a lot of money. Hey, man, like, good for you. She's retired. I'm not. But he's actually a second cousin of Jerry Seinfeld.
Are you serious?
Dead serious.
I did not know that.
Jerry Seinfeld played in a little show called, can you guess the name of the show? Seinfeld. with Jason Alexander. Jason Alexander was the voice of Duckman.
Yeah.
Taking this real way back. Yes. On Duckman, Steven Weber played a character on Duckman. Steven Weber was in Wings with Thomas Hayden Church.
Wow.
That is beautiful.
So that was beautiful, but I had something far more efficient in mind.
I want to hear this because I felt like I took the longest route possible, but I got there.
Yeah, you did. You totally did. So I thought you were going to say Evan Seinfeld was a porn star and he was married to Tara Patrick.
Uh-huh.
And I'm pretty sure at some point Tara Patrick has starred in a movie with Chasey Lane. Chasey Lane is in the Uncle Willie seduction scene.
That's right. Okay, cool.
Oh, there we go.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I went a little bit different route, but we got there.
No, you were much more creative than I was.
Mondo always
and you threw in a Duckman reference.
That's
So, I mean, I'm 100% with you on this.
All right, Jody, give us your trivia of the day.
Okay, short and sweet this time. When Breaker is in World War I and he gets the mantle of the Demon Knight passed to him, the one who passes that to him is named, the soldier who dies there is named Dickerson, which is a tribute to the director, Ernest Dickerson, who really should make more horror movies. I want him to make more. Please do.
Yes.
Listen to this podcast and make more movies. That's all I'm saying.
I invited him to give an interview. I haven't heard back yet, but maybe soon. But he actually did a bunch of Walking Dead, like kind of in the heyday of Walking Dead. He did The Wire, he did Dexter, he did Bones. So yeah, he's still working plenty, and he's giving.
Oh no, he's doing lots of work. I need him to make another straight out horror movie.
And if they made,
because we've got this and Bones. Are those his only horror movies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need more.
If he made a Demon Knight sequel and got Jada Pinkett Smith to do it with him, I would. That would be chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Okay, and to wrap things up, usually we do dad advice, but Natalie is our guest. Natalie is a therapist. So Natalie, can you give us some therapist advice? Because I'm sure we could all use a little bit.
Now, is this just like anything? Like about anything?
Whatever you want to
do. Okay, so I will give a very practical piece of therapist advice, which is that if you want to try to find a therapist that is in network with your insurance, in other words, one that you don't have to pay out of pocket, like myself, one that you just have to pay your $20 or $40 copay to, do not go through your insurance company. Okay, because that is a very frustrating and demoralizing process. You will go through this big long list that your insurance company gives you. Half the people will not respond to you. The other half will either say that they are full or that they haven't been in network with that insurance company for months or years. They rarely update that list. So what you do instead, go to Google, type in Psychology Today Therapist Finder, okay? Look for somebody in your area, filter the search results for your insurance company, and then contact those therapists to double check that they are indeed in network with your insurance company. That will be a far more efficient and far less frustrating process.
That's great advice. And
I love it.
Access to mental health care is so important in getting the right therapist for your needs.
Yeah, 100%. Have no stigma there.
It's 2021. Go see a therapist. Like, it's okay.
Everybody, just go to therapy, please. That's the other advice. Just go to therapy.
Tony Soprano was going to therapy in 1998. Like, if Tony Soprano can do it, we can all do it.
There you go.
Yeah, at the very least, reach out to someone if you need to. It's just, whatever you can do your best. Okay. On that note, that wraps up another episode. This week, we have even more Demon Knight content. On Tuesday, we're releasing our interview with William Sadler, star of Demon Knight. On Thursday, we're releasing our interview with two of the writers of Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. So you've got plenty more Demon Knight content after this jumbo episode you're listening to. And on Sunday, we are releasing Season 2 premiere of Tales from the Crypt, Dead Rights. We would really appreciate it if you would give us a rating or review on iTunes. And we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
And thank you again for Natalie for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
100%.
Yay.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.